Alrighty, so all 12 games from this busy Wednesday night action have just finished, and it's a shame the fact that I am not going to be talking about all 12 of these games in this video, because, if I do so, it would take a relatively long time with the amount of headlines that happen in some of these games, and also, if I do review all 12 of these games, and some of them, I actually still need to watch the highlights of some of them, because, throughout the busy nightcap action, I actually had to watch some of the highlights of the earlier games because I was still at work. But yeah, the other reason why I'm not going to do all 12 of these games is because this video will take way too long, and by the time I upload this video, that this video will probably not be uploaded until early morning, and I'm already kind of very, very tired in terms of, working an 8-hour shift. And then, of course, watching all these games at the same time. And I know I said before I enjoy watching MLS games, but when you have to watch all these games and pretty much sit in the computer and spend almost 5 hours watching all of these games and keeping track of it, and keeping an eye like 4 games at a time after you've done an 8-hour shift, it is a very brutal kind of task. But that being said, it is my hobby. I love to enjoy doing this. And let us actually begin in terms of looking at the first 6 games that happened. And all 6 of these games, I believe, are Eastern Conference game. And tomorrow I'll talk about the Western Conference game. That is the late night action. But the first one is between New England versus Nashville. And, this is what Nashville does. This team, it doesn't matter who, of course, they face. Unless they, of course, face against the Red Bulls, which that's still the only team to beat Nashville this season. But it doesn't matter who Nashville faced this season, they somehow were able to walk it out of either their home stadium or go on the road, and in this case at Gillette Stadium, with at least a point. And while it's a 0-0 draw that they got, and that it's only a point that they got on the road, this is also kind of just shows you that this team can be a team that could be threatened when they go to the playoffs. Because, even if they might not finish in the spot that they're currently in right now, because if they keep dropping points like this on the road and already had a couple of games at home where they drop points, they probably won't finish as high in the table. But one thing that what Nashville will definitely bring is that they are going to bring a living hell out of you to trying to beat them. And as I said, so far nobody besides the Red Bulls have been able to get all 3 points against Nashville. And when you are a team that is hard to beat and you go into the playoffs, that's when it can really become a nightmare for all of these teams. In other words, nobody want to face Nashville when Nashville is going to be once again making the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Now, in the first half, Willis was able to deny Buchanan from long range in the 5th minute before Turner, of course, was coming off that incredible Gold Cup run. He was able to deny Cadiz from close ranges. Was relatively an easy save in terms of Turner's standpoint. I mean, it's much easier than what he did in that game against Mexico, coming up with some big save there. And yes, I'm still talking about that game because, I'm obviously still very hyped about how the U.S. were able to beat Mexico in the Gold Cup. But in the 20th minute, Bo did drive a long range shot that goes wide before Lagarza puts it high from long range. And I thought both teams kind of got some early chances. I mean, when you look at the scoreline, you might think, well, it's clear that Nashville was just kind of sit back and they try to maybe just get a 0-0 draw out of it. Oh no, early on, they did have a couple of chances to maybe score an opening goal. Right before halftime, Willis had to make an easy save catching a shot from Captoon. But we had to have time 0-0 between both of these teams. And in the second half, New England definitely pressed for the opener early, and they thought that they won a penalty in the 64th minute when Bo, of course, was brought down in the box by Anababa. Or so that's what we thought it was the case, because when they go to VAR to see whether or not if that's a penalty, they waved it off. And it's the right call because it is pretty clear that Gustavo Bo tried to initiate that challenge. And in some way, he kind of also died in the box to win the penalty. And, this is something that I actually have not seen as much in VAR where, when a player died in the box to win a penalty. Usually, I don't see a lot of time where they go to VAR to kind of overturn it. So, in some way, I'm kind of happy at the fact that they did that because that might cut down in terms of how players, of course, would just dive in the box and that, I think that also kind of sends a message to a lot of players that, you can't just simply win a penalty by diving in the box, because we know that there's cameras everywhere to kind of detect that. And, I also feel like maybe Gustavo probably should have got yellow for that because of simulation. But nevertheless, I think the punishment was the fact that New England did not get a penalty. And instead, it's just going to go the other way for Nashville. Now, speaking of Nashville, as time, of course, wind down in this game, Nashville was dropping their lines and looking for a 0-0 draw. And anytime when Nashville decide to sit in that very deep bunker, yeah, you're in trouble if you're the opposition team, because you are not going to be able to score a goal against this really, really compact, and especially whenever Nashville just decided to shut everything down and trying to get the resort. Although Bunbury did have a chance to maybe breach that wall when he had a free header, but unfortunately he hits it straight to Joe Willis. But unsurprisingly, New England wasn't able to solve that Nashville low block late in the game. And this game ended in a 0-0 draw. As the shots in this one, 12 shots compared to 7 that Nashville has, 6 shots on goal compared to 2 that Nashville has, 3 shots off target compared to 6 that New England has, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Nashville has, and possession-wise, 69% possession compared to 31% possession that Nashville SC had. And I know some people might not like what Nashville was doing, just kind of become defensive and trying to kind of squeak out a draw, but at the end of the day, it's worked out for them throughout the season. And like I said, this is a team that, even though they are known as the draw kings of MLS, and I think that's now double-digit draw that Nashville SC has got this season, as long as they're not losing game and they can of course make the playoffs, which I'm assuming they're definitely going to make the playoffs. You do not want to face this team in the playoffs, because this will be a team that is going to be really hard to trying to beat, especially with the way that they have looked so far in the regular season. But moving on, in terms of the next match, it is going to be probably the most surprising result of this midweek action. And, this was also a game where there was definitely a lot of goals, and I think this is the most goals that we've seen so far in the Wednesday action this year. Actually, I'm not quite sure that's exactly true, but yeah, this was kind of a surprising result, because I did not expect DC with just coming into lower.com field and just completely smack Columbus and pretty much rip them in pieces. And in some way, if you're a Columbus Crew fan, there's got to be concern after this result, because now with the way that they've conceded 8 goals in the last 2 games, and a defense that for majority of the year, and even going back to last year when they win MLS Cup, this defense was one of the best defense in the league, and yet in these last 2 games, they look like the worst defensive team I've seen in these last 2 weeks. And the other thing that is also concerned about Columbus is that they are starting to get healthy now. Like, there's really no more excuses for Columbus, where maybe early in the season they struggled because of injury. They don't have a lot of injuries now, and yet they're still struggling right now, and this result definitely does ring a lot of alarm bell. Now, in the first half, Kamara did drive one that goes hide in the second minute. Ola Kamara would actually turns out to have an incredible game against his former team. But in the 14th minute, there was definitely a huge concern if you're a DC fan, when Hamid actually kind of got caught in no man's land as he kind of went off his lines trying to kind of punt that ball away. But instead of punting that ball away, he basically kind of caught Lucas Zarian as Zarian was going through on goal. And also Hamid was trying to kind of punt that ball away, and he was already kind of like in a kicking motion, and he basically just kind of kicked it into the shin guard of Zarian, and that definitely hurts if you're Hamid. In fact, he didn't stay in the game. He actually got subbed off for John Kempen, and this is definitely bad news if you're a DC fan, because Hamid is definitely been a goalkeeper that has been solid for them. And we saw how earlier this year, when they did not have Hamid for the beginning of the year, how much DC struggled. We'll see whether or not if that injury is going to be severe, because that did not look good when that happened. But nevertheless, Columbus wasn't able to capitalize, despite the fact that Hamid was trying to just kind of limp his way back toward goal. But then in the 18th minute, DC would actually capitalize after they almost had a disastrous play 4 minutes later. And as I mentioned, Ola Kamara had a great game in this one. He gets on the score sheet to give DC a 1-0 lead, but in many ways, this was an absolute gift from Keita. I mean, this was just a WTF turnover from Abu Keita. Just gave the ball right to Ola Kamara that basically said, oh, thank you very much. I'm just going to go through and go, and slots it in to give my team a lead, and that's exactly what happened as DC were up 1-0 in this game, but Columbus immediately looked to try to press to get the equalizer. Zaire puts it wide from 18 yards out in the 22nd minute before there was a shout for a penalty from the Columbus fan, but nothing was given. And then Etienne go through on goal, but he hits a weak shot right to John Kempen. And again, Columbus was dominating ever since they gave up that opening goal, and they looked like they were going to get the equalizer soon, but then DC would make it 2-0. It's Jordi Reyna scored from Naha to make it 2-0 in favor of DC, before it would be 3-0 in favor of DC United right on the stroke of halftime after a penalty was given to DC, and Ola Kamara was able to step up and score once again against his former team to make it 3-0 in favor of DC United against the Columbus Crew. When I got home and in the midst of watching all their game, and when I saw that scoreline, I was stunned. I did not expect the fact that DC would be going to Columbus and they would put up a free spot, and we're not even heading into the second half. And, well, actually, we did head to halftime with DC leading 3-0. And it actually was almost 4-0 just 2 minutes into the second half when Naha just missed that one wide to miss a big chance for DC to grab the fourth goal. But Columbus did show some fight back and show some pushback, and they started to once again try to get that goal back to make this a game, and they eventually would get it. It's Kevin Molino scoring his first ever goal for Columbus. Always great to see Molino, of course, scoring goals, even though he's no longer a Loons player and he's now with Columbus. But it's a great moment for him to finally score his first goal for Columbus after battling with so many injuries to begin the season. And then 5 minutes later, it's 3-2 in favor of DC, as Zaire would make it a 1-goal game in this one. And all of a sudden, not only the fact that the 20,000 so at Lower.com Field was ecstatic because they know that they could turn around a miraculous comeback, well, DC immediately shut that down, because literally a minute after when that goal, of course, a minute after the resume of play is over, DC would pretty much put this game on ice, as it's Jordi Reyna scoring another goal from scrimmage, another player that in Jordi Reyna that had a great game for DC United in this one. And again, this was really the dagger for Columbus, because all the momentum was with them, and then they just kind of had that schoolboy air where you're always the most vulnerable when you score a goal, and they just kind of had that lapse of concentration, and before you know it, they find themselves back into a 2-goal deficit. Now, that being said, Columbus did try their best to maybe bring this back to a goal and try to set up a grandstand finish, but it was no dice this time for the Crew, as in the end, DC was able to win 4-2 in this game, and the shots in this one, 15 shots compared to 9 that DC had. Both teams had 5 shots on goal, 9 shots off target for the 4 that DC United has. No shots that was blocked for the 1 that the Crew had, and despite the fact that the Crew had majority of the possession, 70% possession compared to 30% possession that DC had, when the chances kind of came for DC, they were able to take advantage of it, and that cannot be said the same with Columbus, especially in the first half. And like I said, for Columbus, they got to figure things out, because this is just a team that is clearly underachieving this season, and especially on the defensive side, where this is supposed to be one of the most rock-solid defense, at least in the beginning of the season, and they have now gave up 8 goals in the last 2 games. So we shall see if they can, of course, figure that out. But for DC, for her, Lasada, this is definitely the victory that they've been looking for, because they've been kind of going through a little bit of a rough patch, but hopefully this is a victory for them to, of course, get some momentum going through as they try to push their way above the red line in the Eastern Conference. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is no doubt the craziest game of the midweek action. Now, despite the fact that this game was kind of crazy with 6 goals that has happened, it has nothing compared to what this game between Montreal and Atlanta United happened. Because this game, we pretty much saw everything that happened in this game. You want to see a penalty that is given? Yep, we got it. You want to see some red cards? Oh, we had 3 red cards that was shown in this game. You want to see a rare moment where a hands to the face resulting in a red card that is actually enforced? Yep, we got it in this game too. And most importantly, you want to see a game where there's, of course, are going to be goals in this one? Yep, there was 4 goals that was scored in this game. Now, early on, Wanyama did goes for a goal just 3 minutes in, or just 2 minutes in for Montreal, but that one mishired. But 6 minutes later, Pentemis absolutely robbed Marcelino Moreno from close range before he would actually deny Bello in the 15-minute. But early on, Atlanta, they looked like they were the more threatening side to get the opening goal. But fast forward near the end of the first half, Wanyama did tee one up from long range, but that one goes wide before Rudy Camacho on the very next sequence. Oh, by the way, that one actually was deflected wide, so it started in a corner for Montreal, which on that corner, Camacho had a free header, but unfortunately he wasn't able to bury that one. And again, it seems like Montreal now looked like they were the more threatening team and looked like the more likely team to get the lead before halftime. But we do head to halftime 0-0 between both of these teams. And then heading into the second half, Montreal would get their opening goal. And it's Mason Toye scoring from Torres and Miller to give Montreal a 1-0 lead. So thank you, Minnesota, as Montreal, of course, Horrors are now up 1-0 in this game. And it would be 2-0 in favor of Montreal, as Camacho was able to make up for that bad miss that he had in the first half by scoring from a set piece here from Mihajlovic to give Montreal a 2-0 lead. But before where the Montreal PA announcer can finish announcing who of course scored the last goal to give Montreal a 2-0 lead, Atlanta immediately got one back. And on the other end, it's Joseph Martinez scoring from Ezequiel Barco to make it 2-1 in favor of Atlanta. And that finish by Martinez was literally the old Joseph Martinez that I know of. And now with the way that Joseph Martinez has scored 2 goals in 2 games and he started to get hot, watch out. You know, this is a guy that is definitely on a mission, and this is definitely bad news for the rest of the league if Joseph Martinez can regularly score goals. But in many ways, it is great news if you're an Atlanta United fan, because that's been something you've been waiting to happen throughout this entire part of the season. Now, in the 66th minute, on the other end, Montreal almost made it 3-2 in favor, or made it 3-1, as Guzan was able to deny Mihajlovic in the near post. I think Kevin Egan mentioned the fact that on this after this chance, the game was just kind of wide open, and it is. I mean, it was just wide open. It was frantic end-to-end kind of action. Could have easily been 3-2 after that. Before, in the 70th minute, it could have been 2-2, as Martinez almost had a chance to make it 2-2 and almost tied it up, but he hits that one wide. I mean, if that went in, yeah, it is kind of clear that maybe we have started to see the old Joseph Martinez, and the Joseph Martinez that is going to be a lethal goal scored week in and week out. But then in the 73rd minute, there was kind of a bit of a controversial call here when Camacho, of course, got sent off after he, of course, brought down Martinez in the box. Now, what's controversial about this is that there's no doubt that this was actually a penalty and Camacho basically brought down Joseph Martinez. But what's controversial about this is the referee gave a straight red out of this. Now, usually when you made a challenge in the box and you bring down a player to concede a penalty, you don't actually get a straight red anymore, because there's also the double jeopardy rule where it kind of protects player, where if you bring down a player, especially a player that has a prime goal score opportunity, you only get a yellow card in that sequence if you bring them down in the box. And it seems like that was kind of the case with Rudy Camacho when he does that, and I was kind of stunned the fact that the referee decided to show a red card. Now, the only time that I've seen the referee show a red card when a player brought down their opponent in the penalty box is that if there is just no attempt in terms of playing for the ball, or there's kind of like a reckless foul that definitely deserve a red card. But in this case, I just don't see it. I feel like Camacho kind of just mistimed his challenge, and he just got a straight red out of that, even though he probably shouldn't have. And, you know, it should have been just a penalty for Atlanta, and that Camacho would get a yellow card because of the double jeopardy rule. But nevertheless, Atlanta, of course, would definitely take it, because not only they got a penalty to tie the game up, they were up a man for the last 15 minutes of the game which Marcelino Moreno would actually buries that penalty to tie the game up at 2 apiece. And then not long after, this is when things continue to get even wilder, as both Victor Wanyama and Joseph Martinez actually got sent off in this game. Now, what happened is both of these guys kind of get into each other's face after a corner was taken, and then Martinez basically did kind of a shove toward Wanyama, and certainly Wanyama was not appreciate that. He decided to kind of do the classic Mexico move, which is basically use his hand and grab his opponent in the neck. And then after, of course, Martinez did not appreciate that, he also kind of used his hand and kind of slap Wanyama in the neck area. And you know, when we see that, of course, happen, you know, if this was in the CONCACAF Champions League or maybe in the Gold Cup, that probably maybe is just a yellow card for both of these players. But no, this is MLS. This is not CONCACAF where you can get away with trying to choke someone with your hand. And, you know, as I said before, you know, how many times I talk about how you just simply cannot put your hand in the face of the opponent or even in the neck area of your opponent. And I'm just so glad that at least this rule has been enforced this time. I mean, there's just so many times I've seen it's not being enforced, and it kind of frustrates me, because if you say that's kind of part of the game, why don't you actually enforce it? But this time they actually did enforce it. Both players, of course, were sent to the dressing room. And yeah, we were down to just 10v9 kind of soccer, which is something that I don't think I've ever said of an MLS game, or at least ever since I started reviewing these MLS games. I don't think I've ever seen a game that ended with just 10v9. But that being said, late in the game, both teams tried to get the winner, and Montreal almost did so, because in the 88th minute, Broguiat he kind of mishits a shot, but somehow it actually hits the post. And, you know, I think if he hits it perfectly, it probably would have gone high, but because of the fact that he kind of mishits it, somehow in some way it just kind of hits the pole. So in some way you kind of wish he mishit it a little bit more, so that actually, of course, went in. But nevertheless, this game ended in a 2-2 draw, and the shots in this game, 12 shots compared to 14 that Atlanta has, 4 shots on goal compared to 3 that Atlanta has, 6 shots off target compared to 7 that Atlanta has, 2 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that Atlanta has, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that Montreal has in this game. And what a wild game this, of course, was. And, you know, for Atlanta, the bad news now in this game is that they won't have their lethal goal scorer, Joseph Martinez, for the next game, although I'm pretty sure they're going to try to appeal for that red card. But the good news is, at least they do walk away with a point. But that also being said, that their winless run is now at 12 games, because they weren't able to get this win. And for Montreal, they'll definitely be very disappointed in this game, because they had a 2-0 lead in this game and they just kind of threw it away. And I know they're going to be mad about the red card by Camacho, but at the end of the day, that's still a penalty. And you know, even if it's just a yellow card, and if Marcelino Moreno, of course, put in that penalty, we would have still been at the same scoreline as we had into the last 14 minutes of this game. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be the Union versus TFC. So we go from a game that pretty much everything happened and it was just a wild game, to a game that was kind of more straightforward, and it was kind of more one-sided, with the Union clearly the team that were by far the better team in this game. And in some way, they desperately needed this win, consider how things have gone, and they have only won 1 out of their last 7 games. Now, early in this game, just 1 minute in, Jack Elliott tried to score an early goal for the Union as he unleashed an absolute rocket from 20 yards out, but that one missed wide. Before Bono absolutely robbed Shabilko, who had a big opportunity from close range, but Bono was able to deny him. But not long after the Union was able to put some good pressure on TFC, they were rewarded a goal. And it's Jacob Glesnes who scored from Gasnet to give the Union a 1-0 lead. I mean, I don't know if Glesnes realized that, you know, when he basically kind of turned around his back to basically hit that one in, and he knew a lot about it. But nevertheless, you know, if you're able to kind of spin around and basically hit that header behind your back and it went in, then yeah, you know, you're not going to complain it, even though if you don't mean it. And that, of course, is what happened. And, you know, of course, that gave the Union a 1-0 lead. Could have been easily 2-0 just 10 minutes later, as Gastak almost ends up on the score sheet if it wasn't for Bono denying him there. It was all Union in the first 20 minutes, and it would continue as Bono would deny Gastek from close range again in the 28th minute. But then there was a penalty that was given to the Union in the 32nd minute as Bono completely took out Gastek in the box. No doubt about that. That is a penalty. And, for Gastek, who has been just so unlucky in this game, I feel like, the Union, they knew that he was a guy that definitely deserved a goal, so they let him take the penalty in this, and he was able to bury it to make it 2-0 in favor of the Union up to that point. And then not long after, it was 3-0 in favor of the Union. And Sergio Santos, who had another great game in this one, as he scored from Jose Martinez to make it 3-0 in favor of Philly. Then it could have been 4-0 after there was a scramble in the box right on the stroke of halftime. In the end, Bedoya actually whipped this, or tried to kind of hit this one and be kind of that player that is able to strike it after there was a scramble in the box, but he just dragged that one wide. But nevertheless, the Union are probably very happy with their first half performance because they were heading into the locker room leading 3-0 against TFC. Now, in the second half, TFC, who has been pretty much dead and buried throughout this game, did had some life in the 58th minute when there was a penalty given to them after Jack Elliott brought down Larea in the box, but unfortunately that life quickly zapped away because Andre Blake was able to make an incredible save to deny Satado from the spot to preserve not only the 3-0 lead, but also preserve the clean sheet for the Union. Burke then almost made it 4-0, and he actually tried to do so in the 66th minute, but that one was deflected wide. And as we head into the last 24 minutes of the game, and you notice I didn't really wrote any notes, that's because the game was pretty much done. Like, both teams realized that it was pretty much over, and there wasn't really much to fight for, so in the end, it was kind of just garbage time, and I didn't really want it, right? Just extra note saying, yeah, it's garbage time. Basically, everyone kind of settled this resort, and that, of course, is the case for this. As in the end, the Union were able to win 3-0 and got a much-needed win against TFC. As the shots in this game, 17 shots compared to the 6 that TFC had, 7 shots on goal compared to the 1 that TFC had. Both teams had 4 shots off target, 6 shots that was blocked compared to the 1 that TFC had, and possession-wise, dead even at 50% for both of these teams. And for Toronto, yeah, this is definitely a huge step backwards and kind of reminiscent the dark days under Chris Armas with the way that they just did not show up in this game whatsoever against a much hungrier Union team. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is another 0-0 draw. This time it came from Chicago as the Fire and NYCFC played to a 0-0 draw. And in the 8th minute in this game, Ofor did have an opportunity to give the Fire a 1-0 lead, but he of course missed that one wide, and actually it didn't really matter if he actually scored there because the flag of course went up. After I thought it was a slow start for NYCFC, they kind of started to get into this game. But then in the 26th minute, Tristensen played for New England, but this is Gudiman Tortensen. I got the wrong Icelandic here, but he blasts one high from 24 yards out in the 26th minute before there was kind of just a period where there wasn't really a lot of chances that has happened in this game, although there was an appeal for a penalty in the 36th minute. But yeah, it definitely looked like it was Tati Castellanos doing kind of his usual dark arts, trying to go down in the box to draw a penalty, and referee knows the game that what Tati Castellanos is going to do, and unsurprisingly they did not give a penalty for that. In fact, I even heard during the Union broadcast, and I think JP De La Camera even said that after that kind of incident, the referee actually kind of spoke to Tati Castellanos and almost kind of warned him that, if you're going to do that again, I am going to definitely book you for embellishment. So, yeah, that was kind of something that was interesting to see, but in many ways, I feel like he should have been booked for embellishment for that, because that definitely looked like a dive that I feel like could be deserve a yellow card for embellishment. But nevertheless, we head to halftime 0-0, and heading into the second half, Solani did try to, Soleimani denied Castellanos from long range. I don't know why I said Soleimani tried to go for a shot It's been a long day, everybody. Apologies if I make some mistake along the way here. But Sanani did deny Castellanos from long range. And by the way, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his names. I might have absolutely butchered that. But just 3 minutes later, Castellanos did try to put one in, but Sanani was able to come off his line to deny him. Before Keaton Parks did try to bend one in from long range, and even though it kind of missed wide, it actually didn't miss wide by that much. It could have given NYCFC the opening goal of this game, but unfortunately 6 minutes later their chances of potentially getting the winner took a big turn for the worse, because Keaton Parks would get himself sent off after he of course got his second yellow of the game. But despite the fact that you think Chicago would take advantage of that and maybe push to try to get the opening goal, they just didn't do it. Like, they really had a tough time to try to break down NYCFC, and it's not like NYCFC was just kind of sitting back for the last couple of minutes down 10 men. In fact, they actually, I would say for the last 15 minutes, they actually had the better chance compared to the Chicago Fire. And if you actually didn't know that there was a man sent off for NYCFC, you would have guessed that Chicago was the one that was down to 10 men. And anytime when I say that for a team that is up a man, that's probably not a good thing. And unsurprisingly, in the end, it ends in a no draw, as the shots in this game, only 5 shots for the Chicago Fire in this game compared to 15 that NYCFC had. 4 shots on goal for the 1 that Chicago has. 3 shots off target for the 5 that NYCFC had. 6 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that Chicago has in this game. And possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 47% possession that NYCFC had in this game. And you remember when the Chicago Fire had a great June and they looked like they were maybe making a push to be above the red line in the Eastern Conference? Yeah, all that progress has been just completely erased. They're back to being that team that, for the first 2 months have been stuck near the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and if they don't pick up the slack again, they're going to find themselves back into that spot. But that being said, moving on into the last game on this board is none other than the Florida Derby, which ended in a 1-1 draw between Orlando and Inter Miami. And, I said in the preview that, I'm going to apologize to Miami fans in advance if they do lose this game, because I really kind of almost bet the house and hoping that Miami will actually do well in this game. And in some way, I thought they did well in this one. I mean, I know the stats will not show it. It might show that they kind of just got out of this with they got really lucky to get out of this game with a point. But I thought throughout this game, even though they weren't creating a lot of chances, they actually had times where they were kind of controlling this game. And, if they just had someone that can be a playmaker and also have someone that can, of course, score the goals for them, this could have been a complete different game, and Miami could have had a chance to get the win out of this game. And also, I just wanted to say that I'm not going to apologize to Miami fans that they got a draw out of this game, because, at the end of the day, I'll only apologize to them if they do get lose in this game against Orlando City after kind of being very confident that they're going to win this game. But at the end of the day, the draw for them is still pretty good, and you even could say that maybe some Inter Miami fans will feel like this feels like a win with the way that they were able to get at least a point against a really good Orlando City side. But in the first half, as I mentioned, Miami, they actually started out the better side, but, unfortunately, just no real clear-cut chances coming their way, because, as I mentioned, they don't have a number 10 and a true goal scorer beside Higuain, occasionally be a guy that is able to score goals there and there. But then in the 13th minute, Matuidi and Nani kind of started to have some nice talk with each other. And you notice I put nice in quotation mark. They're not really having nice talk. I mean, I guess maybe they're just talking to each other and kind of trying to roast each other about how many trophies that they won. I bet Matuidi basically said, yeah, Nani, you basically might have won the European Cup, but how many World Cup have you won? And then Nani basically will rebuttal and said, well, how many Champions League have you won, Matuidi? And then they basically just kind of continue to bigger each other until the referee just kind of tell them, like, how about you guys can talk about this after the game, because now we just want to get the game going. And it's also nice that you're trying to spur up this rivalry a little bit, but we still need to, of course, get the game going. But by the time the game did resume in the 18th minute, Marsman did deny Nani, who went through on goal before Perea actually blast one high from 20 yards out. And, Orlando City, despite they were off to a slow start, they were starting to get back into this game. And even though I also kind of wrote, despite having a lot of possession, Miami has, they just couldn't really crack this Orlando City defense. And, as the game kind of goes on, Orlando will really start to grow into this one. Marsman had to deny Perea from outside the box in the 37th minute before Kyle Smith almost scored an identical goal that he scored in the last game against Atlanta United, but he just hits it wide this time from a corner. And, Orlando was definitely pushing for the opener before the time whistle, and they would get it. It's Antonio Carlos that scored from Nani to give Orlando City a 1-0 lead, although Antonio Carlos really paid for able to score this goal, because he kind of had a head-to-head collision with a Inter Miami player. I think it was Karen Gibbs that he had a head collision, and yeah, that was a very nasty kind of collision. And Antonio Carlos, no doubt, was on the worst end of that, and he did, of course, get substituted off in this game and was able to kind of walk off on his own power. But, if you're Orlando City fans, there's got to be concern with the way that, anytime when you see a player that has that kind of concussion and stuff, kind of symptoms like that, he might be out for a while now. And certainly Antonio Carlos is one of the most important the player in that back line for Orlando City, and we shall see whether or not if he's going to be okay. I mean, I'm assuming he's going to be okay because he kind of did walk off his own power, but again, that was just a nasty hit that I won't be surprised he might have some concussion symptoms because of it. Now, we do head to halftime, as I mentioned, after Orlando City scoring that late goal with a 1-0 lead over Inter Miami. But as we head into the second half, Orlando City again start off the better side in this one. Smith did clear Robbie Robinson shot off the line in the 51st minute, but for the most part, Orlando City were definitely looking to get that second goal, but then Miami really kind of out of nowhere were able to get the equalizer. And it's Karen Gibbs scoring his first goal for Inter Miami, and really scoring his first ever goal in MLS, as he scored from Oriola to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And certainly Explorer Stadium, which was rocking throughout this game, was definitely in complete silence after Miami was able to tie the game up. I mean, I'm kind of surprised they didn't actually show like the away fans kind of celebrate, although I did watch this from the Orlando City feed, so I guess they didn't want to show it and realize that yeah, there was Miami fans around the stadium that was definitely celebrating that goal. Now, in the 74th minute, Orlando did try to get the lead back, but Marsman was able to deny Nani in the far post. I thought Marsman had a great game in this one, and for those that don't know this guy, this is a guy that they, of course, picked up not long ago from Feyenoord, and they started to play him in front of McCarthy, because McCarthy is not really a decent goalkeeper, and they decided to give Marsman a try, and he definitely had a good game in this one, making some big save to keep Miami in this game. But in the 86th minute, it looked like Orlando City is going to do it again. I mean, it seems like Orlando City, from what we know in this rivalry, they always will find a way to get that crucial second goal to win 2-1 in this one. And it looked like Akadeli was going to be the latest Orlando City player to do so, scoring a late goal against Inter Miami. But then they go to VAR to check to see whether or not if Akadeli was in an offside position. And in the end, he was not. And it was very close, but in the end, he was still about maybe a couple of feet offside, and therefore VAR basically chopped off that goal to the displeasure of the Orlando City crowd. But still, as the game kind of winds down to the last couple of minutes, Orlando was definitely chasing for the winner, and Inter Miami looked like they were in that mode where, yeah, we're just going to be happy with a point, and we're just going to drop our lines. And in the end, they were able to scare that point, as in the end, it ends in a tie game between Orlando City and Inter Miami in this Florida derby. And the shots in this one, 14 shots compared to 4 that Miami has, 2 shots on goal compared to 4 that Orlando City has. 2 shots off target per the 7 that Orlando City has. No shots that was blocked per the 3 that Orlando City has. And possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession that Inter Miami has in this game. And, again, Miami will be the more happier side coming out of this one. And Orlando City will be kind of frustrated that they weren't able to get a win against their rivals that is near the bottom of the standings. And also the fact that they know that New England didn't win this midweek game. They miss an opportunity to gain ground in terms of the top spot of the Eastern Conference. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of all 6 of these games. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all 6 of these games? And as I mentioned earlier, tomorrow I promise I will look at the last 6 games. And those are, of course, mostly Western Conference game, where there was also some crazy things that happened in those games also. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 6 Eastern Conference games that happened in terms of the busy 12-game midweek or 12 games match week number 17 midweek action. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.